Okay, we're going to talk about torsion bar suspension in Porsches. So all these Porsches right here, they're all running torsion bars in them. The Turbo has torsion bars. The 64 356 has torsion bars. Actually, all 356s, back to the first ones, back to Volkswagen, have torsion bars. This guy has torsion bars. This guy has torsion bars. This guy has torsion bars. This is a torsion bar. Torsion bar is basically this big metal bar with these splines on it that twists as the suspension goes up and down on it. And there is a certain genius in this part. It's small and it's lightweight. Look how easy it is to hold this. It does the same duty as a leaf spring or a coil spring, which are much bigger and heavier. This is what basically made these cars. It made small, lightweight cars versus big, heavy American cars with chassis and everything. This makes a small unibody car have a great sprung suspension, and we'll get to that in a minute. And so on this car, what we want to do is adjust the rear suspension. We put these big ass tires on it, and you can see the front. Front's got a nice little adjuster on it. The rear is a little bit of a pain in the butt, so let's get to it. First thing first, let's get this thing up in the air. Okay, now we can see the bottom of this car and I can explain the torsion bar suspension system. You see this tube right here? That tube holds the torsion bars. In the center, there's a connector that holds the inner splines. On the outside, there's a spring plate right there that holds the outer splines. The spring plate is connected to a trailing arm, and that's the part that goes up and down. And then it's dampened by these shocks at the end. So why do we use a torsion bar? Well, imagine a leaf spring system. Imagine a coil spring system. Those systems take up a lot of room and they're heavier. So basically, a torsion bar system is lighter, smaller, and it produces less body roll. Now, the person we have to thank for this whole system is the inventor of the car himself. Ferdinand Porsche in 1930 filed the patent for the torsion bar system. He's the one that created it. That's why it's in his car. The front torsion bars are hidden inside the A-arms, and so they're basically the same exact thing. They're just a little smaller, and they run straight with the car. The front ones are super easy to adjust because you have this little adjuster with this bolt right here. So that bolt, turn it in or out, and your suspension goes up or down in the front. The rear here is just not so easy. You have to take this cap off. You have to disconnect the shock, and we have to disconnect the whole trailing arm from the spring plate to get any adjustment out of it. So this is a bitch. It's kind of, I want to say it's a little more of an advanced level thing because there's some tricks involved, but I'm going to show those to you. How we get everything loose and off. So this is independent from the trailing arm, and it's propped up on my stand there, but we can basically pull the spring plate out now. That's sometimes easier said than done. I've replaced the bushings in here, so it will come out fairly easy. But we want a protractor. So we get this protractor. I like this one because it has the settings on it. And we want to memorize and make sure we know what that setting is. Settings are different between long wheelbase and short wheelbase. They're different between 912 and 911. For different length arms, different weight in the back. So all these cars, just call them unique and remember your initial setting, and you want to change it, but most importantly, you want to change both sides the same. So we want to go up here. So what we want to do, we're at like 27 and a half or something like that. We want to go up to like 30, 32, somewhere in that range. That's what we want to do. When I pull my spring plate out and I very gently go to the next spline, what do we got? Let's see. Where can we, so we go to the next spline, and now we're going to be way, way up there. Look at that. We are way more than the 32 that we wanted. That's going to cause some problems, and the car is going to be too high for what we want. So what we're doing on that movement is we're moving the inner spline. Going back to this example torsion bar here, the inner one on the center of the torsion tube, the circumference of that circle is just under, call it 33. It's just under 33. The outer one on the spring plate end is 36. So This one is 3 millimeters larger diameter than this one. What that means is when you turn the inner one, it's going to move a lot. When you turn the outer one, it's more of a fine-tuned adjustment. So depending on which end you are turning and changing, you'll get different results. That last movement where I pulled it out and we've gone too far, we pulled it out from the center part. What we want to do is put it back into where it was and try to wiggle out just this area, just the end of the spring plate for the fine-tune adjustment, because we only want to go 4 or 5 millimeters to change this thing. Okay, now we've got the spring plate loose and the torsion bar is in the metal of the thing. Oh yeah, by the way, if you ever wondered what these plugs on the side of the car are for, they're for taking off the spring plates, because I can't get it off the end of the torsion bar. So they have to put a hole in there and a plug to protrude that just enough to get off the end of it. We don't have to do that with this one, but you can see we're a little bit loose, and I want to bring up something at this point. If you ever have rusty spring plates or rusty torsion bars or rusty the splines or any of that stuff when you're taking apart your car for restoring it, clean the crap out of it. Clean everything. Sandblast it, paint it, grease it, put whatever you can. The fine-tuned adjustments that we need to get out of this are critical. And if we don't get the right adjustments, if you can't get this thing off of the splines, you're in a nightmare. And that's all usually with rust that it's sticking on. Also, another thing is your bushings that you put in here have to be the ultra highest quality possible. None of that crap from China, none of that like aftermarket junk. Some of the aftermarket ones are actually improved, but spring plates are critical, or the spring plate bushings are critical for properly working suspension, and they sag after time if you use cheap bushings. Okay, so I just turned that outer one just 1 notch, and if you remember, we were way up there around 40 before, and now with this finer adjustment, we are more like 36, which is still a little bit too much. Remember, we want to be about 5 millimeters more than it was before. So we want to be like 33, 32, somewhere in there. So in order to do that, we're going to have to pull the torsion bar, and we're going to rotate it. And that will change the degreeing of everything. And then we play with the fine-tune adjustment again. Okay, I'm lucky. I pulled the torsion bar out of its socket, turned it a little bit, and then put it back on, and look where we're at now. We're just over 30, 33. I'm gonna live with that. I wanna go up on this car. And another kind of indicator is gonna be this little hole right here. If the bolt won't go through there, then you may be too high, but you can also lift the wheel up a little bit to get a bolt in there. So we're right on that line where the bolt's very close, but that's kind of where we want it. So that's what I'm gonna go for. And then I wanna mark this setting right here and make sure the other side is exactly the same. Really quick, in case you didn't quite understand what was happening there, we have small diameter splines on one side, and we got large diameter splines on the other side, which means the smaller one does bigger movements as you turn the bar, and the outer one does finer movements. However, the splines are offset from each other, so they're not exactly the same. So if you put the bar in and you can't get the measurement that you want, then you just pull the bar out and turn it, re-index the whole thing, and put it back in, then put your spring plate on, and you can get infinitely different adjustment settings on your spring plate. So it's something that takes a little bit to get your head around, but it's actually quite a wonderful setup. Okay, we got that sucked up, and then remember what I was telling you about this hole right here. So if you can shoot a bolt through there, then you're okay. If the spring plate's in the way, then you start running into a hard limit of how high you can go with this guy, because yeah, it will spring and it will go up, but there's only so far that it's gonna spring and go up. It doesn't move as much as you think it does. Right now, I can fit the bolt in and tighten it, but if I put in the required spacer right here, which by the way, the flange goes to the outside, it goes right up in here. I can't quite get the bolt through there. So we're gonna have to put it on the ground with the weight on it, and the spring plate will go up. Then we'll be able to get that bolt in. All right, with the car on the ground, the hole shoots straight through. So we can put that little spacer up in there, and we're gonna be all good. So now after all that adjustment, we have raised our Rally 912 with the big tires on it. What do you guys think of that? Now you know something about suspension setups. Then we got to do a 4-wheel alignment.